Welcome to What to Do When, a podcast from real lawyers with real perspective, where we explore a variety of legal issues and scenarios. Each week, we focus on a new topic and discuss what to do when and if any of these legal scenarios ever happen to you or a loved one. With over 40 years of combined legal experience, our hosts offer their unique perspectives and insights on a range of real-life legal situations.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of What to Do When here at Critzer Cardani in Richmond, Virginia. I'm Jackie.
I'm Scott. Hey, Jackie, what's on our docket for today?
Today's docket, Scott, is what to do when you are caught in the tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision?
Right.
What is that?
Unfortunately, that's when you're caught by investigators or detectives or even maybe a corporation as being sort of this scapegoat, and they have determined judge, jury, executioner, you're the target, you're it.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about here like you're accused of a crime, and so they don't even look at anybody else. They're looking at you. They think you did it. They believe you did it, and doesn't matter what the facts are. It doesn't matter what it is. That's what tunnel vision is when somebody has that perspective about you. It could be in a divorce, could be almost anything, that you're the bad actor, and there's no way that's going to be changed, right?
And everything that is found evidentiary wise or evidence wise, all they're looking for is evidence against you to begin with, right? So we have more supporting evidence. We have more. Well, you have evidence to support your theory, but is that really supporting the actual agenda? Is that the real
crime? Yeah.
Yes.
No. Does it support the crime, folks? And this is really a really tough thing because, both sides have a really tough job in this. Police officers have a tough job trying to figure out who committed the crime sometimes and that. But, one of the biggest things is we're required to do, and our legal system should be, and quite frankly, we haven't been there for a while, in my opinion, but we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
That means when the facts line up to say, yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt, this is the person who committed the crime. And that's a pretty high burden. That means reasonable doubt means all other doubt. There's no other reasonable doubt. There's no other reasonable theory that you could be innocent.
Right.
So, but when people get tunnel vision, reasonable doubt seems to they don't stop asking the questions. Well, what if it was Mary who actually did it, not John?
I think they stop asking questions that would lead to a different conclusion. Was it an accident? Did this person fall off the ladder? And we are in a community in a society where oftentimes I think, especially in a corporate situation, they're really looking for this quote unquote smoking gun that may not be the smoking gun, the person to take the blame. Maybe they're being looked at for some sort of bias, or they're being looked at for some wrongdoing, and they're looking to throw a name as quickly as they can so that they can say it wasn't us, it was this person, this is what happened, and we've let them go and they're fired, and they have charges pending or whatever.
Yeah, we're okay. For instance, say you're in a situation like at a big national corporation where they have data, right?
Sure.
And the company has this data breach, and all of a sudden all these thousands of people, information got out on the web or whatever. And they're like, oh, we got to really quickly do an investigation. And they look at their cameras or whatever, and they see Jackie was the only person in the room at the time. And from there on, the narrative goes, it's Jackie. We know it is. Now we just have to prove it. That's how tunnel vision starts.
Right.
And, the questions who should be asked, well, there was anybody who could have outside access.
Sure.
Was there anybody else who hacked Jackie's stuff and got access?
Sure.
Or, the 100 other questions that could be asked. But, because like Jackie said, the corporation wants to close this down and clear their name. All we didn't do it was our employee, and we fired them.
Right.
This sometimes happens so fast that nobody's asking the questions that need to be asked to try to really get to the truth of what happened. And, like I said, I'm not blaming anybody. We just see it happen. And we think it's very, very important to have counsel who understands these things happen, because as counsel for somebody, criminal defendant especially, you have to be able to say, maybe this was tunnel vision and maybe I need to look at it. Did they ask? Did they ask Mary if she did it versus John?
Sure. Well, Scott, is there any way that anybody could say talk their way out of tunnel vision?
Well, let's say it this way. If somebody believes something about you so heartily, it's really usually hard, almost impossible to convince them otherwise. And you can, then usually you're talking about it will usually just feed their belief. It's really unbelievable. I always have criminals, people who are charged with a criminal crime, excuse me, but who are, think they're smart enough to outwit the system and can talk through it
Sure.
and think if they answer the questions just right, they're going to not be convicted. And normally their answers only hurt them. And I'll give you a prime example. I think it was James Duane who did that Fifth Amendment thing. It was really great. If you ever look for something fun to watch, it's a great one. But the bottom line is, say you had an alibi and you think you're going to get out of it because you had your alibi, and you say, well, I was at my sister Diane's when that happened.
Mhm.
Okay. Police say, okay. They go to your sister Diane's. She goes, yeah, he was here, but he was only here for an hour.
Right.
And then the cops say, oh, see, you lied. You lied and told the whole story. You didn't lie. You just didn't. You thought you were at Diane's. You thought you were there a couple hours. Maybe you didn't have your timing right. It was 7 months ago.
Right.
You knew you were at his sister's house. You don't know how long you were there. But my point is, all of a sudden, everything you're trying to justify doesn't help you. It actually hurts you. And then you're down a road even further.
And even when you didn't do anything wrong, you didn't do the thing you're being accused of, but there is no getting out. No matter how much you talk, no matter how much you say, or how much you explain your position or explain all the pieces and parts, you're stuck in the tunnel vision and you're not going to get out easily. I mean, we have, if you all know, I listen to Dateline, I watch Dateline, but I listen to it in the car a lot. And there are cases where you can hear the detective say, yeah, I didn't do that very well. I sort of flubbed up this case because I was sure that the information we had was the good information and that this person either was the guilty person or was not the guilty person, right? Where an innocent
Yes.
person is found guilty wrongly and in a court of law, and then it takes years for the convictions to be overturned. Or you get the opposite too, where they don't go looking for the right person, and these cold cases are left open for years and years because this information is right under their nose, but they were so tunnel visioned away from that person, which, I mean, if you're the accused, that's good for you. But if you are if they've got the tunnel vision for you and you are the innocent person, you're in some serious trouble, and you for sure need counsel to figure out how to navigate that, and not just okay counsel, not just somebody who is just going to sort of check the boxes and fill in the circles. You need somebody who recognizes when the tunnel vision is happening and knows how to navigate it, because it's going to take that much more work to get out of it.
And the other thing that happens with tunnel vision, we were talking about this earlier, is this was what happens. Say Johnny gets accused of molesting Melissa, right? Whatever it is, okay? And somehow that gets out. He gets charged with molesting Melissa. And then we have this world of people out in the world, the hinterlands, social media people and things, and they'll get a hold of this and they'll start sending, oh, can you believe this guy did this? And they feed into this so bad. And they, this whole principle in our judicial system where it's better for 100 guilty people to go free than one innocent man to spend any time in jail. That's what our system was premised on. Just goes out the window. And then all these people are like, oh, he's guilty. We should kill his family. We should kill his dog. We should kill his cat.
Stone him in the
temple. They have no information, usually. They have no idea what really happened. They haven't seen the police reports. They haven't seen the facts. They haven't seen anything. Maybe this was a situation where the lady made everything up, and we don't know that. But my point is, tunnel vision, that reinforces it when this whole conglomerate of media and social media and everything start to point the finger and say,
right?
the mob mentality gets in there. And then, you talk about, then the burden becomes so much higher, because now everybody believes, yeah, this is what happened. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people outside of our profession who will be like, I can't believe that person did that. And I'll say, well, how do you know they did it?
Sure.
Well, they were charged.
Right.
What does that have to do with anything? I mean,
they lawyered up.
They lawyered up. Oh, yeah, because if you get a lawyer, you're guilty. Well, no, that's not the way the system works. The system works that you get a lawyer to defend yourself because you're not smart enough. Let's be really clear about that. You're not smart enough to defend yourself. I think
But
maybe
the lawyers aren't smart enough to defend you. That's just why picking a good
Yeah.
one's important, okay?
there's millions and millions of people in the world, and I would say 1 in a million could actually do a good job defending themselves. Because you
Oh.
have to be able to get outside of yourself and think critically in a way that your brain just doesn't work because you see the world as you see it.
Right.
And you got to see it as a different way and a different perspective. So, just because somebody lawyered up doesn't mean they're guilty. Just because there's a petition that says, or indictment that says, hey, John Doe is indicted for molesting Susie Doe, it
Or
doesn't,
killing, or, I
yeah,
mean, fill in the blank.
whatever. And I'm just always amazed how many people go, well, they wouldn't charge him if it wasn't. You know how many people we get off every year who didn't actually do it? It's not that they got out of, everybody's like, oh, it's a technicality. They actually didn't. I'm just saying the evidence wasn't there.
Right.
They didn't have the evidence to prove the case. So it wasn't that we lawyered up and manipulated the system. The fact of the matter was they charged the wrong person. And that happens all the time. And I'm not saying people do it on purpose. There's no malice there. They believe they have the right person. That's what tunnel vision is about. You're really believing that that's what happened and you had the right person and all those things. So be careful when you're out there and you see this social media thing, buzz start going for somebody and they're going after this guy saying, oh, he did it, he did it, he did it. Everybody jumps on. That should be your first indication that maybe not.
Careful what the group think, leads you to believe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that it is groupthink, and and it's hard in our society, but we really have to. Me, right now is one of the most critical times in our society. We have to start peeling that back and say, hey, let's wait and see what the facts say. Let's wait and see what really happens here.
Sure.
And sometimes you and the world outside of the courtroom never know exactly what the facts were.
Mm.
You may never hear exactly what went on. You may never hear the backroom deal where the attorney and the prosecutor had a frank conversation and realized there's pieces of the pie missing. We can't make a pie here. We don't have enough rhubarb to make a rhubarb pie. So, that's the things that go on. And sometimes you'll never know that. And you'll walk through your life believing that this person did it. And maybe they just never did. And again, there's plenty of people who do it.
Sure.
And there's plenty of people guilty. We're not at all going down that road. But it takes very experienced investigation and staying away from the groupthink and this thing we call tunnel vision and asking people to ask questions. Sometimes it's during the investigation stage. You can throw out something to the investigator and say, had you considered this? Have you considered that? And it's interesting, man. It can really be a big deal. It can really change the course of our history, quite frankly, when we do that, because I've watched it over the years. I've watched people, I think a good one is the Duke lacrosse.
Ooh.
Think about that. If you don't know this story, go back and read the papers way back at, what was it, 10 years ago, 5 years ago?
Mhm.
A bunch of Duke lacrosse players was accused of committing rape, weren't they?
Mhm.
Some kind of sexual assault. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was rape. And they got excoriated. The media, everybody said they did it. These are bad kids, blah, 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 blah. It went on and on and on and on and on. They were decrying their innocence the whole time. They got kicked out of school. All these things happened. Everybody in the world was saying, oh, yeah, that happened. And then, just recently, the lady who made the accusations said it never happened. She lied about it. Here's some kids who lost so much.
Well, they lost time, number one.
Yeah.
Right? They lost, that's time you're not going to get back, but my gracious.
Imagine being the person who was prosecuting them on social media, so to speak. They were saying, oh, you're guilty. You
Sure.
sending the death threats to their family or the accusations to their family. And here's this lady comes out and says, oh, it never happened. You got to be smart about, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person who accuses somebody who didn't do it.
Sure.
But
there was, last week I was listening to one of the podcast versions of one of the Dateline stories, and the
you
detective,
really like Dateline, don't you?
well, this is important.
Just
The
kidding.
detective had determined that the husband had killed the wife. They found her dead. At first it was ruled a suicide. And the detective and the family said, no, there's no way. There's no way she would have committed suicide. There is no way. And here's the laundry list of reasons why. And although one of the analysts on the episode talked about the defense attorney really doing a very bad job,
Yeah.
very bad job, very bare minimum, did say in the closing argument, by the way, if all they needed was the gunshot residue test on him, the investigators and detectives had the husband's robe that he was supposedly wearing this particular night for months and months and months. Where's the GSR test? And 11 years later, they were able to go back and find that they had sent off for the GSR and that there wasn't any on his robe. It was exculpatory information, which the prosecution's required to provide to the defense.
Yes.
Required. It's not even that we have to ask for it. They're required to provide it. But they said they didn't get it. The detective says, well, he never got it back. And the analyst said, that's not possible. There's no way he sent off for that test and then just never got it back. They buried it, and they buried it deep. And the second set of lawyers who were going through this, basically Innocence Project, were the ones who demanded, and they did some really cool stuff. They went into the evidence locker and the cases, and she had to take pictures of every single thing that was in the file. And she found a piece, and it was early on in her reviewing the file. She
Wow.
found that it was there. She kept going. She had to act like she was still looking, and made all these demands. But 11 years this man spent in prison, wrongly convicted,
It's crazy.
because they had tunnel vision and because they didn't reveal all the evidence that would have shown that he didn't have any involvement in her death.
And people think in those kind of cases, like, well, we know he did it, so we shouldn't give that information because that may skew a jury and they may not find him guilty. And we know he's guilty. That's how it works, man. And
Exactly.
it's crazy. You think it doesn't happen, and just say he did have gunshot residue. Well, was he shooting earlier in the day? Did he have? There's just so many things that can happen, but it's not definitive. But it so often, and again, our couch people, what are they? Armchair quarterback. I don't
Yes.
know what it's called in a criminal case, but I have so many people, these judges out there who don't actually have a position or a robe, but they make these great decisions about no, they're absolutely guilty because this would have never happened. But when you get into this work, there's so many elements to it. There's so many things you have to look at, and you have to believe as a defense counsel almost that they have tunnel vision.
Correct.
You have to believe that that's how this got there, so you can unwind it. And it may turn out to be, like I said, it may turn out the facts all line up. But if you don't try to unpack that tunnel vision and start from that perspective, then you're at a disadvantage from the get-go. And so many people won't take on cases and everything because they hear all this stuff, bad stuff, and obviously they're guilty. They were a horrible husband, therefore they were definitely a rapist, kind of thing. And
or they're accused, so there must be sufficient
Yeah.
evidence.
Yeah.
No.
So anyways, that's what we wanted to talk about today. We just think these things are really important for you to educate yourself and to even educate your community, because I think social media has made this tunnel vision thing much worse since
Sure.
I've been in practice. But again, I'm not faulting social media, but I'm just saying we need to be careful. We need to understand it.
And when you're the subject of the tunnel vision, you have steps to take. First of all, do your homework, find a good attorney, a good one, and it's going to be expensive. But to save your life, you're going to need good help to unpack that, just like Scott was saying. And also be careful when you fall trap to the social media or to the trial of public opinion where there's just not sufficient information to support the public lynching, if you will, of the people who are, or the persons who's been named as the criminal defendant in a particular case. You just have to be careful and look out for corporations or investigators or prosecutors who are looking for a scapegoat.
Can I say one more thing real quick? It just dawned on me. Craig Cooley is one of the premier defense attorneys, I don't know in the United States, but I know in Virginia. So anyways, Craig Cooley did the Beltway shooting, Melville. And one of the things they got tunnel vision on is this kid did it and he should have the death penalty and all that stuff. But one of the things they focused on was the fact that the kid had known to be killing cats, I think it was. And Craig can correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was cats. And so, he was an animal killer from youth, all this kind of stuff. And what Craig did to break that tunnel vision is he actually started to investigate it and found out that where he grew up, in the island that he grew up on, cats were almost like rodents, and they were very much bad animals, and that people did kill them regularly, and it was part of the culture, and it was different than in America where cats are treasured pets, and stuff like that. So I'm just saying those are the things that happen, and if you don't have a good attorney to unpack that and try to figure that out, why he killed he did this as a kid, therefore he's this person now.
Right.
And so anyways, I just thought that was a really good thing that I remember very well. And
Well, and he was ultimately convicted, right?
he was ultimately convicted, but he got out of the death penalty because the depth, and they didn't prove that he was just a psycho from birth,
Right.
and broken from birth. And he was able to unpack some of these things and showed more of a grooming behavior than it really was.
That's a pretty
you
big
know-
difference between the death penalty and life in prison
Yeah. So
because of the work that he did. So
anyways, and again, he was, that when you hear the whole story, we all thought this kid should rot and all that stuff and go, no problem with the death penalty. He did horrible things. But then when you see how he was groomed and how Craig proved that grooming, again,
Right.
the tunnel vision didn't fit the narrative, and unpacking that was so important in a case like this. Not that he's not guilty, not that he doesn't have responsibility and nothing, but it's not the same as the tunnel vision. It's not the same as the narrative, we call it nowadays.
Well, we would love your feedback. If you have questions, comments, or topics you want to hear us cover, please reach out to info@cclawva.com and check us out. We look forward to hearing from you.
Now we cover Chesterfield, Richmond, Henrico, and all the surrounding areas.
From the beach to the Blue Ridge.
Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of What to Do When. For more episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast, and we encourage you to check our archives to listen to previous topics. Tune in next week for a new episode and some fresh perspective from Critzer Cardani.